to this edition of Treasures of Truth. And I'm excited to be able to share with you a treasure of truth from the book of Psalms that is connected as far as topically to the last video. If you have watched it, this will be a perfect one to watch next. And so anyway, I call it Divine Desires. But anyway, Psalm 37, verse 4 is the focus verse for this video. And this is what it says. Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. Psalm 37, verse 4. I'm going to read it again. Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. Now, this is obviously a well-known verse. It's been a favorite verse for countless people, through the last couple of thousand years. But as with so many other scriptures in the Bible, there are treasures of truth beneath the surface of this verse that can help us to mature and to grow and to develop in our walk with God. And so a cursory reading, just a kind of a surface reading of this verse, gives us the impression that, that yes, we should focus on the Lord and be delighted in Him. And that's absolutely true. It's totally in line with all of the scriptures and all of the Bible. But there is another meaning behind the word delight in this verse. And it is the form of the Hebrew word onag, and that root word, the root of that word carries the meaning, get ready for this, it doesn't mean just being happy or being delighted, or it doesn't just mean being really excited or all those kind of things. The root word of this Hebrew word means being soft and pliable like clay in the hands of the potter. Clay being shaped and molded in the hands of an artist. And so that gives an entirely new level of understanding about what this verse says to us. When it says, delight yourself in the Lord, it does mean that we should be delighted, the English word, but it also means that when we delight ourselves in the Lord, that we should remain soft and pliable and moldable by Him. And so that is a totally different level of revelation in this verse that people have read for centuries and centuries and centuries. Now, there's another thing about this verse that I want to share with you, because this is a verse that if you only read the surface and you don't really dig into it, you can actually interpret it to mean the opposite of what it really means. I'll read it again. Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. Anyone's human nature would be like, oh, awesome. I want to do whatever I can to get the desires of my heart. We all like what we like. We all want what we want. But there is another treasure of truth beneath the surface in that word. And so let's continue to dig into the treasure trove of the Bible. Here we go. The other scriptures, in the Bible encourage the people of God, to be pliable and cooperative with God as He works to shape us according to His will. And I'm going to read several of those verses to give you those references now. Jeremiah chapter 18, verse 6 says this, like clay in the hand of the potter, so are you in my hand. God is speaking here. So are you in my hand, O house of Israel. And then also in the verse Romans 8:29, that verse says something that relates to this as well. Romans 8:29 says this, for those that God foreknew, He also predestined to be conformed to the image of His Son. That's also a picture of God molding and shaping our lives and the character of our hearts. And so that's Romans 8:29. Also, it says, it's always God's will for us to remain soft and pliable. God does not want us to be hard-hearted and uncooperative and saying no to His plan for our lives. Because when we do that, we live outside of the blessing of God, and we live outside of the favor of God, and we cannot walk out our divine destiny in this world. And so it's always God's will for us to be soft and pliable, receptive and cooperative to His work in our lives. And so this is a part of the meaning of the word delight in Psalms 37:4. But as I was saying a moment ago, sometimes we can read a verse just on the surface and we interpret it to mean something different than what it actually means. And this is a major verse that can happen in. Once again, delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. Now, I want to dig into another treasure in this verse. The word translated as give in this verse comes from the form of a Hebrew word that is translated into English, and it looks like the word Nathan, like the name Nathan, Nathan, but it's actually pronounced in the Hebrew, Nathan. And so, many cases, it is correctly translated in the Old Testament as to give. But there are also other meanings in the Bible from this exact same word that can reveal an often overlooked truth in this particular verse in Psalms 37, verse 4. The word Nathan is also translated in other verses in the Bible, not to say the word give, but to say the word put and set. And a form of this same word is also used to translate as the word put in Isaiah chapter 42, verse 1. And that verse declares, and God says, I will put my spirit on him. And so what does all this mean? When we take into account the additional concepts of this Hebrew word, and both Hebrew words that we've talked about in Psalm 37, verse 4, it could be translated like this. It could be translated to say, with the revelations of those two words, here's what that verse could actually say. Delight yourself in the Lord by being soft and pliable in His hands, and God will put the desires into your heart that will lead you on the pathway of His will for your life. Acting on this amplified translation of Psalm 37, verse 4, is without question God's will for all of our lives. So let's act in obedience to this truth. You know, we read that verse and we think that it means that if we're just delighting ourselves in the Lord, He's going to give us whatever we want. He's going to give us whatever our desires are. But that's not really what this verse says. What this verse says is, if you continue to remain soft and pliable, delighting yourself in the Lord, but also remaining soft and pliable so that He can mold you into the image of His vision for your life, then He's not just going to give you whatever you want. He is going to plant the right desires in your heart, the ones that will lead you to the pathway of your divine destiny in this world and in eternity. So think about it that way. We delight ourselves in the Lord. He's going to give us the desires we really need to help us grow, to help us mature, to help us advance in our faith in God, to help us become the full capacity of all that God has created us to be. So, one more time, let me give you what I called the really cool translation of this. It says it could be saying this: delight yourself in the Lord by being soft and pliable in His hands, and when you do that, God will put the correct desires, the ones that align with His will, He will plant those into your heart and they will become your desires. It's not just that you're going to do a bunch of things that you don't want to do and do a bunch of things that you can't stand doing. It means He really will plant the right desires in your heart and they will become your desires. So your desires in your heart will be in total alignment with God's plan. You can't live a life any better than in that condition. And so I just want to encourage you today. Let Him plant the divine desires that will lead you to the absolute best place in your life, in this planet, on this planet, in this world, but also in eternity. God bless you, and I pray that this has been an encouragement to you. And if it has, would you please hit the like button and the subscribe button so that you can get notifications for when the other videos are uploaded. But also, if this has been an encouragement to you, if this has been a revelation that is really something you're glad that you know now, then you could be used by the Lord to be a blessing to other people by simply hitting the share button. If you share this video on your social media, you might be a major encouragement to many other people, and you might be used by the Lord to cause other people to begin to walk out their divine destiny. And so that would be an amazing reward that you would get when you get to heaven. And so God bless you. Thank you so much again for joining us for this edition of Treasures of Truth.